in past and future Stewartville Star weekly newspapers. So with that, it's 6 o'clock. I want to thank you. My name is Nick Johnson. I'm on the board along with Jared Johnson. He'll be my timekeeper tonight. The chamber puts this on every election year, and so it's nice of the Civic Center to allow us to use this space. Want to give a special shout out to Chris Roberts, who's here tonight, making sure that people at home can watch this via Facebook and YouTube. So without further ado, we'll start with our city council candidates. We have 3 people on the ballot this year for 2 open positions. Daniel Ware was invited tonight and declined his invitation. And so with us this evening, we have Craig Anderson and Josh Arndt. So gentlemen, thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So we'll start with an easy one. Craig, you go first. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Good icebreaker for me, right? My name is Craig Anderson. I'm from Grove Heights, Minnesota. Well, first off, I'm married. I have a son that's a senior in the school district. So whoever gets elected, do the right things, please. That would be great. And football is kicking butt, so that's a pretty cool thing. Anyhow, I'm from Grove Heights. I graduated high school, went to college in Duluth, where I majored in criminology and sociology, minored in psychology, decided I wanted to be a cop, so I had to go back to community college at that point. That was pretty slick. And I got all my training doing that. I applied all over back then. It was 500, 600 people for 5 positions trying to get a cop job. So although I was from the Twin Cities and went to school and interned in Duluth, I ended up applying all over the place. But one of the places I specifically applied for is Rochester because it was the same size as Duluth. So I've been here for 24 years. Moved into Stewartville in 2003. 3. Been here since.
All right. Thanks, Craig. And Josh, a little about you and your background.
All right. My name is Josh Arndt. I grew up on a farm just outside of Red Wing. From there, I went on to college and I got my master's in education. And I got a teaching job here in the district 15 years ago. This is my 15th year here. I've been at the high school and middle school all that time. I'm married. My wife Heidi's in the crowd here tonight. We have 3 kids, a 6th grader, a 3rd grader, and a kindergartner. So they keep us really busy. And we moved here in 2012. So I was teaching here for a few years and everything looked good. So we were able to find a house and I've been here ever since.
All right. Thank you, Josh. So Josh, we'll start with you for question 2 here. What skills and or experiences qualify you to serve as a city council member?
I think there's a lot of things that make me a qualified candidate. I'm just completing my first term. And right now I think I'm better equipped and I understand kind of the process of how things work because it was kind of eye-opening the first year. And then of course COVID hit, so that kind of threw things for a twist. But while I've been on the council, there's been a number of committees I've been on. I've been on planning and zoning, finance, public safety, public works, the library committee. And then I was also on the 2042 comprehensive steering plan. We're just wrapping up with that. So it was quite an experience. And in terms of leadership, I've been a teacher again for 15 years and coaching during that time too. So as a teacher, I'm a member of the union. So I'm becoming more of a leader in that. I'm a PLC facilitator within our special ed department. So I just work with a variety of people in a variety of settings. So it kind of gives me a diverse perspective on what's going on in our community because I see the kids that I work with that are 14, 15 years old, and I work with their parents too, who are my age and older. So it's a really good perspective.
All right. Thanks, Josh. And then Craig, same question.
Sure. So I'm just finishing my 2nd year on the city council here. I was lucky enough to be nominated and served a year on the EDA prior to that, and I've represented the council's interest in the EDA the entire time. So I got 9 years in the EDA, and you'll hear me talk about that because I think it's important. Part of my skills that help me with city council, I understand the labor side of things. I've been a union president within our police department since 2001. I served on a statewide union board elected position for 11 years. Around that time, anyhow, that in a union that covers over 6,000 cops. I'm currently the vice president of the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association, which is the largest representative unit of police in the state of Minnesota. And we cover 10,400 cops. As part of that, I'm at the Capitol. I'll be flying out to Washington next month. I meet all the candidates. They all want our endorsements now suddenly. They like us now. They didn't a year and a half ago. So things changed, but I got my foot in the door on a lot of things. I think that helps and I can bring it here.
Awesome. So Craig, question 3, we'll start with you. What will you do to create and sustain a community that embraces diversity and appreciates differences?
All right, I read this question. I first saw it and I thought, what are you going to do to create it and sustain it? Well, if sustain is part of it, it tells me it's already somewhat done created. I will tell you this, if you guys are waiting on me to have an important role on how the community embraces diversity, we are sadly mistaken, because it's not the government's role to do that. It's our role to make sure we're doing best practices in hiring and policies and education and embracing things. But what I would say is I'm going to continue to support what's going on here. And we need to do more functions that the chamber puts on, Summerfest, Winterfest. Let's start by getting everybody together and realizing how much we have in common. And then we can appreciate the diversity. When you know that you have more in common, you're not threatened. And when you're willing to listen to people of a different culture, maybe a different skin color, different sex, whatever it may be, whatever their mentality is, whatever they believe in, if it's different and you're willing to accept it because you know you have more in common than you have separate, that it allows us to embrace diversity. I do that by myself. I do it with my friends. I will encourage it within the city all the way forward.
All right, thank you. And Josh, how about you?
I think my role as a teacher is a good way that I can do this. I can lead by example. So a lot of the students I have, they're gonna grow up and they're gonna become citizens in our community. So we need to teach them to listen to other people and start looking at the facts and not get so worked up about things that are not true. So we just need to be able to identify common ground and just asking people what they want and what they want to see. Because a lot of times it becomes an us versus them situation, and that's not good for anybody. So we need to identify that common ground and then be willing to compromise on certain things. There are certain things we don't want to compromise on, but there's some things that we got to look at the big picture on. But then we just have to encourage this discussion between different groups of people and just encourage involvement. I look at all the people that are on the committees with me, all of you guys here, you guys are involved, and that's what we need more of. And just from all different backgrounds and all different perspectives.
All right. So question 4, Josh, we'll start with you. You mentioned involvement. How do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process for projects, codes, ordinance changes, and more?
I think the biggest thing we got to do is ask people. Like, we got to ask questions. We got to ask them to be involved. And then when they ask us questions, we got to be able to answer them to the best of our ability. And I think our city staff is doing a great job with that. They're using social media. They're getting things out there. I think they had the stuff on the roof at City Hall was getting repaired today. So that was up on there. So just people know what's going on. But we also have to invite citizens to the meetings that we have, to the forums like this, and different groups and committees. I'm the council representative on planning and zoning, but there's 5 other people that are there that are just regular citizens that want to see things go the right way in our town. I think we also need to identify what matters, because if something matters to people, they're going to show up. And I think of the 2 things that were the most controversial, one was the trees, the boulevard trees, being able to replant those, and then the Sun Communities expansion. Those were things that people really showed up for. So we got to make sure we continue that outreach.
Thank you. Greg, same question.
The city, Josh nailed it. I mean, the question's pretty straightforward. We have to keep inviting the community to get involved. I will say to go off on a tangent a little bit, because we already know how great the city staff and CETA and everybody are doing regarding that. Keep encouraging, keep letting people know how much we appreciate them getting involved. Keep giving them the opportunity. I give everybody the opportunity about 4 or 5 days a week during happy hour hours, and I'm willing to listen to anybody, and I've proven it before. Vikings games, I'm out there. Come talk to me. Ask questions. Honestly, all of us as council members, city staff, everybody, we have, if you guys feel like you're going to be heard, you're going to be talking up more. You're not going to be afraid to approach me and say, this is dumb that you're putting a sidewalk here, or wait, there needs to be a sidewalk here, or whatever it may be. No, don't wait for it to be just in your backyard. Community is your backyard. So we need to reach out, but more so, I need you guys to know that you're going to be heard if you speak up. And that's going to happen with me. Well, with our whole council, I hope.
Okay, thank you. So Craig, we'll start with you for question number 5. What do you see as Stewartville's biggest strength currently?
Oh, crazy to say Stewartville being Stewartville actually is what it is. There's something about this town that's awesome, and it brings people together, and people want to embrace the past, but we also know we need to move forward. We need to, in order to keep our property taxes low and keep the community sustained and be able to do the extracurricular things that we want to do, we got to bring businesses in. We got to get more of that base, but we have so many things to do, and I think we'll be talking about them more so down here. But Stewartville is a community that's got the amphitheater now. We got Summerfest, we got Winterfest. When the football team's doing great or the volleyball team's doing great, it brings everybody together in the community. When I come home from my work, I don't go north of Fleet Farm on my days off because I don't want to leave being around here. There's so many things. Chamber of Commerce kills it. Everybody does. There's so much togetherness in Stewartville that we need to work to keep going towards the future, but we need to embrace that and embrace each other. And it's exciting. I can feel it right now. Goosebumps. I get energetic.
All right, Josh, how about you? What's Stewartville's biggest strength currently?
I kind of cheated on this one because I picked two. And kind of backing on Greg here, the citizens and city staff are kind of what are one thing that make the city great. Everyone that's involved wants to see good things happen to our city. You look at the local ownership of our businesses. We've got Cabin Coffee, Two Brothers, those types of things. It's great to see that expansion happen in town from people that are local. And they're involved in issues that they care about. Like I talked about the boulevard trees and the Sun Communities thing. Summerfest is huge. You look at the streets, I think our population probably triples during that time just because you have so many people. And then the city staff, again, you look at the turnover, there is none because they stay here forever and then they retire. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is just our physical location. Look where we're at. We're right on I-90. So that's going to help our businesses. We're close to the airport. Rochester Mayo Clinic. It's great to have such a great facility just up the road from us. So those are some of the things that make our community great.
Thank you. So Josh, question 6, we'll start with you. What are the top 2 changes you would like to see for our community and why?
The top 2 that I have listed down is just, I want the city and school district to work better together, more cooperation between the two. There's a lot of things that we could do together that mutually benefit both places. So the city and the school district. A lot of times it feels like we're roommates. We're sharing this area, but we're not really sharing the cost of anything. So I'd like to see that change. And then we can work on splitting those expenses. So if we want to build a new park or something else that's going to be $15 million, we can split that cost because it'll benefit both. It'll benefit the city and the school. And then the other thing is downtown improvements. I talked about this last time 4 years ago, and I think we have a long way to go, but just kind of beautifying downtown. We have that great mural on the building right outside here. I'd like to see more stuff like that and just kind of set some standards for property owners that they have to meet. So our downtown looks more cohesive, because right now I think that's one thing that's lacking.
All right. And Craig, how about you? Your top 2 changes?
Pave 15th Avenue. No, it's not. I want that done, but that's not one of my 2 changes. I want to see the footprint of the city change a little bit by adding more residential homes. And on top of that, I also think we need to afford affordable housing, of course. And there's obviously a need for a senior, but a lot of that's going to require change. We're going to need people that own property near the towns to be willing to sell it, and developers to come in and develop it. And as long as I'm on the city council and the EDA, I'm going to work to make sure that we can work together to get those things done. I used to also say Taco Bell, but that's here. So that one's accomplished. We'll put the check mark on that. More of that. I hear people all the time would like to see more dining options, more retail, whatever it may be. I don't know how, and I know we're going to talk about downtown later, so I will agree with what he said too. Bring these things here. We need to continue to do that. And so we stay here, right?
All right. So Craig, we'll start with you for question 7. What do you propose for promoting and or using existing business properties in Stewartville that are currently empty?
First thing is, I can't yell loud enough that the EDA is willing to help. We work with Joya Stetson from CETA, and she's been creative as heck. We find grants. We've done TIF financing for places. I mean, anybody outside of the city or even in the city, I'm yelling for help here. Like, let's go. We're working together and we need to share that message. We've got to get these buildings filled. We've got to probably change some of the buildings. Again, that's for downtown later on, I guess, but just got to work together. People need to understand. I'm not a fan of government support it. Government should support it, but government is not our fallback. We shouldn't be driving it. We shouldn't be telling, we need to point you in the right direction and go, but we don't rely on government to fund everything. That's crazy. But private and government partnerships, we can get a lot done. So let's be open-minded. Let's communicate. Let's work together and be creative, and we'll make it happen.
All right. And Josh, how about you? What are your proposals?
I've got a couple of things on my mind. I think one thing we could do is kind of promote some pop-up shops, because we have a lot of open space and we have a lot of local talent that can sell things like pottery, and there's tons of people making t-shirts and things like that. So if we do something like that, it'd keep money local. You have the vendor themselves would be making some money, and then they'll spend that back within Stewartville. And then, like Craig said too, with the downtown buildings, just being able to have some type of rent control or rent support. And I know EDA does a great job with that. But again, it's going to come down to property owners being willing to compromise and look at their opportunity costs. They can let a building sit empty, or they can make a little bit more money by renting it out. And then they can look at raising the rent for farther down the road. But they need to be willing to compromise a little bit and work with the people that are willing to start a business here.
So you've both talked a lot about downtown. So Josh, we'll start this question with you. Do you think our Main Street / downtown is healthy and successful? If not, what would you do to change it? And if yes, tell us why.
I think since I've been on the council in the last 4 years, I think our downtown has gotten better, but I still think there's a lot of room for improvement. I think we're on life support right now. Again, we have all these EDA programs, but people are not taking advantage of them with the rents and things like that. So again, it comes down to the property owners. We have to push them to do more and hold them accountable. And again, set those standards for what our downtown should look like. And I've talked about it too, just making it more attractive, more cohesive. We've got the Tiger mural and just making it look better and more inviting as you're driving into town. I think that's the biggest thing we can do.
All right, Craig, what are your thoughts?
Is it healthy? And what was the question here?
Yeah, if it's healthy
Healthy
and
and
successful, and if not, what would you do to change it? If
Yes and no.
tell us why.
Yes, it is, because there are some businesses that are succeeding. That's great, but they can do better. What we really want, we want vibrancy. I want a vibrant downtown. I want to see people walk in from the brew pub to the pottery shop that he talks about to Cabin Coffee. Cabin Coffee's come in. That's been great. We need more of that. We got to get rid of these buildings that sit empty, the crazy arguing that goes behind the scenes when there's deals close to being done and they don't go through. Enough of that. The comprehensive plan that's in the works here and it's drafted. They're nailing it. Do we need to change some zoning maybe so that we can encourage people to build something that's got a business on the main floor and maybe rental properties upstairs? We have to be creative because it's going to be a risk for anybody to come into downtown, refurbish a building and or maybe build one in some of the in-betweens. Risky. They have to feel safe. We can do more events downtown to show that we can be vibrant. Business owners see that, and if they see that it can work, it can work. So we got to work together on that vibrancy.
All right. So Craig, we'll start with you for this next question. What can be done to increase more single-family residential construction, and are we on par with other communities of our size?
I'll answer the second half first. No, we're not on par when I compare us to what's going on even in Chatfield or Byron. And, I bring up Byron because the mayor can't get enough of Byron. So that was for him. But, granted, they got a big golf course that they built around, but I would really like to see us get some more residential properties of like the second and third houses that people want to move into, a little bit bigger. People that choose to live in Southwest Rochester that have kids going down here, but they want to live here, but they're up there because of that. We're already working on doing that. You can see that sewage and drainage and water and everything has already been piped towards the northwest of Bear Cave, where there's new apartment buildings, townhouses going in. We're working with people hopefully to develop some of that, and maybe we can develop to the northeast as well. But what it comes down to is us helping out, again, being creative, helping with some of the costs. It's expensive to do infrastructure, but if they know that we'll work with them and make it as fair as possible and they can do all right, it'll get done again.
I did a little bit of research on this. I was able to look at the county of Olmsted County's website, and I think we are on par with Byron in terms of the number of building permits. In the last 2 years, Byron had 450 permits issued, and we've had 410. So it's pretty close. But when you look at the value that those buildings added, in Byron, it was $37.9 million, and in Stewartville, it was 36.7. So you look at the value we're adding, I think we're on par there. But again, like Craig said, we do need more housing, and we need that higher level housing too. But the city staff are doing a great job. We're expanding that infrastructure, sewer, water, roads, all of those things. It's pretty boring to talk about. And there's a lot more that goes into it that I didn't expect, but we have to do that because it's essential. And we need more multifamily homes and things like that, like the Flats 55, and they're looking at expanding. So we're working on it.
Okay, and Josh, you touched on this earlier, but our last question that's prepared tonight. From reading the 2042 comprehensive plan, it seems as though stakeholders feel the school district is a very important part of our community. So how do you plan on working with them to find more space for the growth that the comprehensive plan lays out?
I think it's very important. I think as a member of that committee, I was very involved in getting that put together. I think one of the things we need to do is find common planning time. Like I've talked about, it's like we're roommates, but we're not really working together to make things better. My first year on the council, we had a joint meeting between Racine, Stewartville, and the school board, and that was the only one we had. Granted, we had COVID in between, but I'd like to see more common planning time so we can make sure we're on the right track. And like as I said before too, is just identify some of those mutual projects that are going to help us out. Some of those multi-use facilities, whether it's like a field house or a athletic complex that we can build and attract different events and things like that. Like youth sports are huge. We could get some more events like that in. And just investing together, because the students that we have today are going to be the people that are voting in a few years. And actually some of the seniors might be able to vote this year. So we got to give them a reason to stay and show them that we care.
All right. And Craig, same question.
Just look across the political landscape of our country, and what's one of the most heated arguments everywhere? It's education, right? I mean, people are so passionate, and they should be. It's about their kids. So of course, we have to have a school district that's going to want to bring people here. But part of that is, what can we do to change it? Going back to what I said about the nationwide thing, it's a shame that is one of it's become a political battle. I'm so sick of the fact that just because you might like one thing, it means automatically that you believe 30 other things on this extreme side. And there's no room for that anymore. And we can fix that here because we're at a smaller level, and we don't have to rely on the media to give us our message. Because just like he said, I can't agree more. Let's just talk one-on-one, sit down at a table. I would like to see us get together and spend together and think together rather than two different things. I get the feeling like that too. Sometimes it's like we feel like we're fighting each other for votes on things, and that's not the case. So it all comes out of communication. It's kind of the bottom line with everything. And this minute stuff is really hard, man. This is getting crazy.
Well, good news is we still have about 5 minutes before we're done here. That's the end of our prepared questions. Megan, Alicia, did we get any questions from the crowd? So we'll give you each 90 seconds as a closing statement, an overarching statement. If you want all 90, if Jared can make that go to 90. Craig, we'll let you go first.
Honestly, no questions. You guys crazy? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just saying that.
I'm all for it. They got rules that they want to follow, though, and I appreciate that and I respect it. So I would just say this. Like I said, I'm not a lifetimer here. I came in 2003. I've worked for the police department in Rochester since '98. I got a few more years to go, and then I'm pulling the pin, and I'll be in a lot better mood around here even, which would be great too, and hopefully dedicate more time to the city. I'd really appreciate getting everybody's votes. The thing that drives me on it is I do not have a personal agenda. I've voted against the way I've wanted to vote more than once. And it's honestly been, for a guy that talks as much as I do, I really think that I listen. I'm not threatened by any of you guys disagreeing with me. I'm not threatened with you having a better idea than I do. I mean, Jesus, if you didn't, we'd be a mess. But I do come up with some good ideas. I would like to continue on the city council. I want to be a voice for you guys. That's ultimately, and sometimes people get elected and they lose that and they push their own angle on things. And then we end up going the way we are with all the messy politics that's going on. It's not about that. It's about what can we do to bring us together. And the more I can be around and asking questions and say, hey, that's a great idea. Let's do concerts in the park. You know, like, again, city staff and CETA, awesome that they do stuff like that. If I'm still around on this and I make it another round, I promise to continue with that stuff and work with every one of you. I'll listen and I'll be your voice.
All right, Josh, 90 seconds or less, closing statement.
Yeah, I'll echo a lot of the things that Craig said. We have to come together. It's been a trying couple of years with COVID and everything that's been going on. So we just need to be able to work together and start looking at the bigger picture rather than just our little silos that sometimes we find ourselves in. We just got to be able to look around and see what's going to be the best for Stewartville. Again, we've just worked on this comprehensive plan. So what is it going to look like in 20 years? And I'd like to be one of the voices that gets to kind of guide where that's going. I think I've done a pretty good job, and I think I can do even more.
All right, thank you. Well, that's our time here for the city council. So Craig, Josh, we want to thank you for participating here tonight. Audience members, thanks for being here as well. We will take a break for those of you watching on the live stream and start back up with our school board at 6:45. But thanks to everyone involved. And
thank you guys for coming. This
we'll
is
be back.
exactly what we're talking about, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So first and foremost, thank you everybody for coming out tonight to the 2022 Chamber-sponsored candidate forum. We have our school board candidates joining us here this evening. 8 people going for 4 seats. So a lot of questions to get through this evening. We want to thank Chris Roberts for being here so that this is live streamed on YouTube and Facebook. And then of course, Alicia and Megan for helping us out and gathering questions, checking people in. Gwen Ravenhorst for doing everything behind the scenes. Gwen's the best. And then Jared over here is our timekeeper this evening. He'll keep everyone at 60 seconds or less on these questions. So candidates, thank you for being here. And we'll start with an incumbent, Ryan Ravenhorst. We're going to go on the opposite side. Question number 1 is pretty simple. Please tell us, introduce yourself, and let us know a little bit about yourself and your background.
All right, I'm Ryan Ravenhorst. I'm 43 years old. I have lived in this district for, I think, 40 years. I attended Stewartville schools from kindergarten to 12th grade. I graduated in 1997. After that, I went to college to get a degree in business administration. I have worked for our family business for 27 years where we manufacture insulated piping. I've been married to Gwen Ravenhorst for 22 years, and we have 2 children, my son Berkeley, who's 19, and my daughter Greta, who's 14.
Chris, your turn.
Okay, my name is Chris Negley. I live in Racine. I'm 50 years old. Married to my wife, Kristen, for 19 years. We have a little guy who goes to Bear Cave. Again, we live in Stewartville, rural Racine. For the last 4 years, I drove bus for Grissom's, and they're the transportation provider for the school. In my spare time, I've remodeled houses, built our current house, and along with other property improvement projects over the years. I have more interests and hobbies than a focused mind should, but mostly I enjoy working with my son and other kids and doing the things that make memories for a lifetime. I've worked in juvenile corrections and worked in logistics and yeah.
All right. Betty, go ahead. I think it's on. It's on already.
Hi, I'm Betty Lechtenberg. My husband and I moved to Stewartville in 2003. We have 2 children, Nicholas, who graduated from Stewartville High School in 2020 in our pandemic year, and Brooklyn, who's in 5th grade at Bear Cave. I have a master's of business administration from St. Mary's University. I've worked at Mayo Clinic since 2001, and in my current role, I manage projects, budgets, collaborate, and interact with people across the institution, as well as executives at other institutions.
All right, Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Kiefer. I'm 42, almost 43. I graduated from Stewartville High School. After that, I went on to college and got my degree in elementary education. I did sub at the Stewartville School District for a couple of years. I did land, though, at Mayo Clinic. I'm working there currently, and I've been there for about 15 years. I married Jake, my better half. We have 3 kids. 2 of them are school age. And then we have a younger daughter who will be coming into Stewartville too. What else? I'm active in our community. I was a Girl Scout all the way up through my senior year of high school. I'm still in it. I am a Girl Scout leader. I'm active in church. So yeah, I love our community.
All right, thank you. Matt?
Good evening. My name is Matt Hugenvik. I'm originally from Winona, Minnesota, but my wife and I chose to move here to Stewartville 19 years ago this December. I'm a graduate of Luther College in Decorah, Iowa, where I studied biology and a minor in chemistry. And I've worked at the Mayo Clinic for 21 years. The first 20 of them were in the Department of Laboratory Medicine and Pathology, 3 of them working in the lab, and the last 17 of that was actually as a business analyst supporting the labs and IT systems that they needed to be successful. I married my wife, Tracy, 21 years ago today. It's our anniversary, so she is a saint for letting me be here instead of out somewhere else. We have 2 children in the Stewartville district, Nolan, who is a senior, and Keena, who is in 9th grade. Locally, I'm an active member of the Zion Lutheran Church. I'm on several different booster clubs at the school. I am on the Chamber Board of Directors and Secretary of the Morning Lions, and I love to volunteer and finding new ways to give back to make this community as great as it can be.
All right, thank you. Jonathan.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Helbig. I'm originally from South St. Paul, Minnesota. Moved down, graduated from high school up there. Went to St. Mary's University in Winona. Graduated with a law enforcement degree with a minor in general business. Went on to run some private security up in the cities. Moved down here about 11 years ago with my wife, Katie. We have 3 kids in the district. I have Maddie, who is 12, Connor is 10, and Lena is 5. I also went back to school, got my bachelor's degree in nursing, and I just completed a master's degree in nursing and education. So education is pretty important to me.
All right, thank you. Troy.
My name is Troy Geist. I have my wife, Gina. We've been married for 15 years. We've been in Stewartville for 15 years. We are originally from Wyoming, and we moved here in 2007. We have 4 kids, 2 that all have or were in or have been in the Stewartville school system. 2 have graduated, 25 and 22, and then a junior higher and a 5th grader. I'm a graduate from the University of Wyoming with a degree in accounting. I've had 20 plus years in finance. I worked for Mayo Clinic. I spent my first 8 years working in research programs, managing grants and research programs, 3 years in the corporate finances, doing Mayo budgeting and planning. And then the last 3 years, I've worked in the School of Continuous Professional Development as a senior business analyst.
All right, and Christy.
First of all, I want to thank the Chamber for putting this on and everybody who submitted questions, attending, or watching online. This is a really great way to get to know all of us to make an informed vote. So I'm Christy Cook. I was born and raised in Stewartville, and at a really young age, this district became something really important to me because my mom was a teacher here for 25 years. I spent many weekends helping her in her classroom, and it made me want to go into education myself. So I graduated with my teaching degree from Luther College and have my master's in instructional technology. I've done education for 19 years, both as a classroom teacher and then in administrative roles in a few different districts. I also teach for the U of M in their undergraduate and then St. Catherine's in their graduate program. So even though I've had a successful career in education, probably the proudest thing I am is for my children. So I have 3 kids that are 12, 10, and 7. And my husband, Brian, and I have both grown up in Stewartville. So we're very connected to the school and the district.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. A lot of you sharing your ages. That's showing a transparent group. So thank you for that tonight as well. We'll do question number 2. Chris, we're going to start with you on this one and keep working that same rotation. So what skills or experiences qualify you to serve as a Stewartville School Board member?
Well, I've got a unique perspective compared to most of the people here. Everybody's probably a little better educated than I am, but I think that gives me a unique perspective of a lot of the community that, we had with a recent referendum and stuff, we got a lot of challenges ahead of us. And I think I can give voice to that. When I studied at the University of Minnesota Duluth, I studied psychology and communications. And I think that gives me some input there. And kind of lost here for a second, but so unique perspectives and also just being involved in the school district with the kids. I do a lot of volunteering, and I've really enjoyed that, and so I'm invested heavily into it, just like a lot of these guys.
Okay, thank you. Betty, same question.
I previously served as a board member from January 2007 to August 2009, at which time I did resign to pursue my graduate degree. I feel that I'm open to listening to different points of view and believe in making data-driven decisions. And I know that sometimes the board is called upon to make hard decisions, and I have that experience.
Okay. Stephanie, your turn.
Sorry, I'm not a salesman, so I'm not good at selling myself sometimes. So I would say I'm really great at listening. I'm great at communication. I do this every day with our patients. I have problem solving skills. I'm very open minded. I'm super empathetic. I have had some life challenges and can relate to people. I work really well on a team. And my goal is just to help provide education to every child here, the best education. So,
Okay, thank you. Matt.
I believe that my vocation for community service and my passion for education have what's led me to be here today as a candidate before you. My years of experience as a servant leader in many different organizations and my empathetic listening skills and my analytic approach to problem solving are some of the skills I think that equip me well to be a good candidate to represent our community on the school board. When I was younger, I was fortunate enough to have received a great foundation in education from my parents in the school district that I grew up in. And I want to continue that service here and to see our students achieve even greater things than they already are right here in Stewartville.
Okay. John.
So my experiences is that being an operations supervisor for the private security firm that I used to work for helped me to understand how the bidding process goes and how to really work as a team and build a team. And also I was a paralegal for many years. That was one of my other degrees. So I really got to learn how to work with other positions within different points of view and learn how to work through those problems. Last is that I've been on different coordinating councils within nursing units. I was a chair and a vice chair of my unit one, and then I was also the vice chair of my division one. So really learning how to approach a problem, present that problem, and get feedback was important to learn.
Okay, thank you. Troy, your skills and experience.
So for the school board, I would say that while I'm a parent that has had 4 children in the school district, I think I have a unique perspective to some people because I've had 2 kids go through the school district and graduate recently. So I have a perspective on the outcomes. And, looking in the rearview mirror is a lot easier to see what could have done better and what was done well. Again, I have 20 plus years in finance and budgeting and planning for industry and not-for-profit Mayo Clinic. I've worked at all levels of organizations and had to communicate to worked with CFO of Mayo Clinic and CFOs of industry and all the way down to production workers and why we're closing up their lab or research lab and those type of things. So I've had to have hard conversations and conversations that weren't always fun to have. And I know that is probably something that a lot of times the school board probably has to do, especially because not everybody knows what goes on in the background of the school board. And so there may be decisions made that the public may not like, but may be needed.
Thank you. Christy.
So I believe that my professional background is a strong asset that I can bring to the school board. I've worked with numerous districts. Therefore, I've seen many examples of things that are going well in other schools. I understand education policy because that's what I do every day and have a strong knowledge base of curriculum and best practices in education. And I've witnessed some amazing opportunities that other schools are providing and would love to bring that experience here as well. Although I feel like my educational background is a strong advantage, probably my biggest asset is my connection to the community. I'm heavily involved in the community and have a lot of connections with community members, and I respect those with different opinions than mine and understand that if I were to be on the school board, I'm serving the community and not necessarily my own personal agenda.
Gotcha. And lastly, Ryan.
Well, I am an active listener and I strive to make sure that people are heard and they feel heard. The residents, students, staff, they all have voices, and it's absolutely imperative that they are heard. Through my primary job, I have experience with logistics, vendor contracts, service contracts, human resources. All these skills kind of helped me get my feet wet during my first term. But I have since tried to make the most of the training courses that are offered through like MSBA, the Minnesota School Board Association. These courses, they entail things like school finance, policy, Minnesota State High School League policies and procedures. I find a lot of value in these types of courses because all these things that I mentioned above, they're very fluid. So training is really important.
All right, thank you, everyone. So Betty, we'll start with you for question number 3. What do you see as the current challenges facing education in Stewartville, the state, and the country?
I believe that the top challenge is keeping our schools safe for all of our students, staff, and visitors. A big problem is state funding doesn't keep up with inflation. And because of this, districts are having to reprioritize their funds to meet the district needs. And another challenge that we have is attracting and retaining our staff.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie, same question.
I had 3. From what I've heard, funding is a huge issue that if I'm elected, I will dive into and learn more about. I also feel safety and security of the students is probably the second one. And then also just having access to support kids' mental health and well-being.
Okay, thank you. Matt, current challenges.
Some of the challenges I see in our district here are questions that we've already come up with and talked about. I see that the facilities issues that we have in Stewartville are going to remain a problem until we come up with a viable solution that works for all of us, including our taxpayers. On a broader sense, I think that one of the challenges I see is us getting back to being together in a classroom. Many of our younger students, in the last year and a half have had to make that transition of what it's like to be in a classroom because they grew up with it online. They didn't have that experience. And I think some of us have forgotten what it's like to be in the classroom together and to function as a classroom. We need to find ways to be more inclusive of all of our students, find new ways to excite them and to get them wanting to have curiosity for education. And then lastly, one of the things I think is important that Stephanie already touched on is I think we need to be better prepared for the mental health and the mental wellness of our community of learners. A lot of us have had challenging situations like that coming out of the pandemic, and we need to make sure that our schools are equipped well to deal with that.
Okay, thank you. John.
Some of the current challenges that I see are definitely the safety, that hit really home about 2-3 weeks ago with that Lourdes scare. And that's definitely an eye opener when people don't realize that we don't have enough security and enough safety in our schools. The other part that's major too is the fact that we lose great teachers. They move on, they find other school districts to go to. And I think it's important that we need to hold on to those great educators because they are our future. They are the educators to our future. And I think if we keep losing them, we're going to lose that part of ourselves.
Okay. Troy, current challenges.
I think some of the current challenges, maybe some of the accountability and discipline in our schools to make parents accountable for their kids and the administration and stuff to help our educators educate in the classroom. I think that we should have, I see that rear view mirror look from my kids who graduated from Stewartville. I see that there wasn't a lot of options outside of like academics for kids. My kid had a kid that struggled with academics and he lost hope because it was all about school and numbers and reading. And he really lacked any options to be able to do other skills, vocational skills, stuff like that. Yeah, that's
okay. Christy?
Some of the biggest challenges facing education today are students' mental health, school safety, and teacher shortages, which everyone's kind of mentioned. So we have seen a huge shift in the mental health needs of our students, and schools just aren't prepared to deal with all these students that are needing extra support. And we can't expect students to learn if we don't address their needs first. So we need more professional support in schools and more training for our staff. Also, schools are seeing more behavior issues and kids that don't feel safe at school. So we need to address the issue of school safety because schools should be a safe place for our students to feel welcome. And then I believe both of these issues, as well as others, are kind of leading to our teacher and substitute shortages. So this is a huge concern, not something that's just seen in Stewartville, it's across the nation, but we can't effectively teach our kids if we're constantly short-staffed.
Thank you. Ryan.
Well, adequate funding remains a major challenge for most school districts across the state. And just for example, like the federal government, years ago, they didn't deliver on a promise of covering 40% of special education costs. And this puts each district in a position to cover those costs. And today, I think they cover somewhere between 10 and 15%, and the remainder ends up in the lap of the local taxpayers. Staffing is a major concern across Stewartville, Minnesota, and the nation. Teacher departures and shortages are happening at an alarming rate across the country. And although Stewartville does do a pretty good job of the teacher retention and employment, but I think the support staffing is the major concern to give the teacher support.
Thank you. And lastly, Chris.
So going last has its deficits because everybody else pretty much covered it all. But I would agree with the safety and security. But I would look at it a little bit less as technology. I think we do need the technology, but our biggest issues are staff retention, because having enough staff in the classrooms and in the hallways and out there, that's the biggest safety thing. And why are we struggling with, everybody's struggling with retaining staff, but I think we can do a better job of it and figure out it's not the people I've talked to, it's not about the money as much as it is about the support and feeling like they're being supported from above. And I think we need to take a look at that. And just the next thing is the facilities. And I'm going to talk about that more later, but there's no doubt we need to streamline the facilities and work on those. But just like everybody else said, those are funding issues too. So we got to figure out how to fund those, either from the public support or from the state, et cetera.
All right. Thanks, everyone. So Stephanie, we're going to start with you here for question number 4. How will you maintain balance between providing the highest quality education for students and at the same time be mindful of the tax impact on our property owners in town?
Well, I think the first part between maintaining balance is I would aim for prioritizing the core academic needs for kids. And then also I would try to make that balance. I'd look at, take note of the community survey response that was just out. And we have to listen to our community and what they're willing to support us with.
Okay. Matt?
I think fiscal responsibility is an incredibly important thing to be aware of, especially now in today's climate. We saw high rates of unemployment during the pandemic. We are in the midst of inflation, so all of us are kind of thinking about money. So to combat that, I think we really need to take a step back and do some analysis on what the needs are for our schools, what our wants are, and what our nice to haves are, and spend time prioritizing those items into some lists. That should help us to be able to drive to be better stewards of the dollars that we do have, and hopefully limit our need to run to the taxpayers every time we find something that we think we need to add. Another thing I think that can help us to accomplish some of this is embracing advancements in technology that allow us to actually add efficiencies to our schools. But that's kind of a double-edged sword, because we need to make sure that there's a return on investment from the cost of implementing that technology, because oftentimes you will spend a great deal of money to implement that and you won't get that savings back, and you actually just dug yourself a deeper hole. So,
okay. John?
So I feel like really it's important to get in touch with the stakeholders, which are parents and the voters. And I think too I think it was great because it was a great topic that was brought up earlier, was that there should be more of a collaboration between our wonderful city and our wonderful school board. And I feel like if we can collaborate and work with, our mayor and our superintendent and get the two boards together, I think we'd have a lot more success in trying to accomplish everything that we want to. We want safety, we want security, we want staff retention, we want new buildings. And I think when we asked that first question this last year or this couple months ago, it was a big impact because, as we said, money is tight. Everybody's thinking about it and everybody's worried about it. So I think if we can keep all that in mind and move forward and try to work collaboratively with our city, I think we make some success.
Okay, Troy, same question.
So I'd probably echo some of the other candidates here with forming a hierarchy of importance. That's kind of analytical. Let's find out what we need to get done. Let's use the data to drive those decisions. And then let's use public opinion to help sway those one way or the other when there's not a clear winner in those decisions. Our core basic education, that should be our number one. Make sure our kids know how to read and write and do math, right? Let's make sure they're coming out of school being able to fill out an application and write their name and put a complete sentence together. And then let's move down into some of those other areas of those more theoretical or thought, history, those to science, those other things. But let's make sure they can read the science first and understand it and do the math, and then move down into other things like your extracurricular and maybe some of your vocational type courses. That's it.
All right, Christy?
This is always a tricky question because schools are very underfunded and a lot of times that falls onto the taxpayers. But I know the community, Stewartville community especially, really wants to do everything they can for the students, but it can't always expect the bear of the burden to fall onto them. So this is where I think it's really important just to have the publicized budget so the community really knows where the money is going. And then also knowing kind of when you're in education, you know that certain things can be spent in certain places. So just making sure the community is aware of where the money is going and how it can be spent. And then we do need to make sure we exhaust all other avenues. So state funding, grants, donations, things like that before we kind of bring that financial burden to the property owners. When we do need to ask for money from the property owners, we need to make sure it's the right plan and kind of like what everybody said, really putting the needs first, what needs to happen first. We do need to be competitive with other schools in the area. And to do that, sometimes we have to spend money, but we shouldn't always go straight to the taxpayers to do that.
Right.
Well, if you have a great staff, I believe you can do more with less. Stewartville does have a wonderful group of people working for them. And yes, money is needed, but more money doesn't always necessarily equate a better education. In my decision-making process, my first question is always, how does this affect students? And then the number two is, how does this affect taxpayers? And I believe the key to this balance is staff relations. A happy, respected, and compensated staff will really do wonders for your district.
Chris?
So I've had a little different experience. The people that I've actually talked to, almost 40 people I've talked to, only 3 of them brought up the amount of the tax burden, and was why they voted no in the referendum. And I think that's an interesting thing because the next thing they followed up with was how it was being spent. And I think we need to be more responsive to that and look at what they really want. And I thought that was interesting. But I echo, again, many of the statements that have been made here. We need to be responsive to what the community wants. And I do believe the community wants to do different things with everybody I've talked to says, let's get rid of the Central Education Center. And we just need to be responsive to those people and also look at how we can fund it differently and be more creative.
And Betty?
I also echo a lot of the comments made. I also believe that the board needs to continue working with the director of finance to develop balanced and fair budgets each year with the funds that we are allotted, and develop 3 to 5 year plans, and also work with our staff to ensure that they have what they need to continue providing students with the best education possible. We need to continue to listen to our stakeholders. They have a lot of valuable information to share. And I think having those conversations when you're out and about in the community can be very fruitful and are things that we should be bringing back to the boardroom.
Thank you. So we'll do a couple more questions and circle around, and then we'll take a quick intermission because there's 8 of you and this can go for a bit. So we'll have that 5-minute break here in a moment. Also want to remind everyone that many of these questions have been submitted from community members, and Megan and Alicia are there and ready to take questions. We're doing pretty good on time. So if you have a question you want to submit during the intermission, that would be great. So with that said, we'll start question 5 with you, Matt. Would you provide educators the professional courtesy and autonomy by allowing instructional practices and curricular decisions to be decided by MDE and other qualified individuals in the educational field? Or would you permit parents and outside influences to dictate and limit what teachers are allowed to provide students, even if it isn't best practices?
So I found this to be a very interesting question because it's really 2 within 1. And I'll start by saying the word autonomy scares me. So my fundamental answer would be no to both parts. I don't think either should be able to do anything fully themselves. Any civic organization needs to have governance and checks and balances to make sure that we're fulfilling what the business objectives are, what we're trying to accomplish, and to provide some of that guardrails that keep us from going astray. But at the same time, we need to make sure that everybody is being heard. We need to rely on the experience and the training of our staff who have those perspectives, who understand what those best practices are, and not write them off, but at the same time, make sure that we're being diplomatic and cooperative and inviting the parents into that conversation. Yeah, I think that's
All right. John.
I echo kind of the same things, but I feel like it's important for our educators to really have that autonomy because they're highly trained. They went to school for this. They understand what best practices are for education. I think we all kind of got a touch of that while we were all distance learning, that teachers are very vital to our curriculum. I feel as if too is that the parents should also have a voice in that as well. I think it's important because they want what's best for their children, and if there's something that they don't feel is right, they should be able to speak up to that and make their voice heard. And I think between that collaboration is what's key to that success.
Okay. Troy.
So not to sound like a parrot, but I think the educators and the people that, they go to school for this and they do all of the back work and the research on it. They should definitely have definitely the driving force in the curriculum. But on the flip side, they are our kids. You are the one educating them. So the parents should have a say in it. And, honestly, we're in a forum that we're elected officials for the school board from the public. So, I mean, we're being elected to be a voice of the parents of the district. So, I definitely believe we should trust our educators to give us a good curriculum and be transparent with what that curriculum is. And then the parents should have a voice in to have their opinion in it.
Okay. Christy.
I'm going to sound the same here. I believe we owe the teachers the professional courtesy to teach what they've been told to teach from MDE. Teachers aren't really coming up with their own curriculum. They're teaching standards that are reevaluated every few years from experts in the field. So teachers, they purchase a curriculum and they teach that. That being said, I always have said that schools should be a partnership between parents and administration and the teachers. So teachers should be open about what they're teaching in their classrooms and have open communication with their parents. And parents have every right to ask questions about what's being taught to their child, but the focus really should be on building that relationship and with the school and the families in order to be transparent about what is happening in the classrooms while also honoring the fact that these are professionals that are teaching our kids.
Okay. Ryan.
Well, the Department of Education and our state legislators, they create this umbrella and the walls that we are allowed to perform in. And we have to perform accordingly. And I believe in our whole democratic process of electing those who represent us, who represent our interests, which give the Department of Education the direction they need. Now, if there was a group of parents or certain parents and outside influences that want something that is contrary or outside of those walls, we would have to defer to what the Department of Education says we have to do. Now, that to me does not mean that those talks should ever end. We should continue to be talking to these people because there's always a reason for one's needs, and taxpayers' voices should always be heard, regardless of whether or not their wants and needs are in contradiction to what the Department of Education says. Now, if there was like an overwhelming majority that believed that what was going on with the Department of Education was wrong, well, that would spur me into action towards our legislator to get something changed. But until said change was made, we would have to comply because non-compliance would hurt the district, which could end up failing the students. But
Way to respect the time. Thank you for that. All right, Chris, same question.
Okay, for me, I'm gonna just echo a lot of what everybody's saying. It's all about balance, right? I tend to lean more towards the parental part of it, and not because the teachers have the technique. I mean, we saw that when COVID was going on, and the techniques the teachers have in teaching math and all these things is just amazing, right? The curriculum too, just like Christy was saying, that's we need to and everybody was saying it here. We need to stay within these walls. However, the parents have the ultimate responsibility for the child, and should have the final say. They can remove their children from the district or homeschool at their discretion. So obviously, they do have the final say, not the MDE or any other entity. But parents and students are consumers, and we need to answer first and foremost to them, and then to the MDE. But again, it's a balancing act because some of the curriculum is tied to funding, and the state does that very sneakily. So we need to figure that out too, right? I mean, so it's all about balance. But ultimately, I think the parents have more responsibility and more rights to say than the MDE.
All right, thank you. Betty.
I guess I would challenge that to say that I believe MDE has staff and experts in the field, as Christy had said, that help set the policies. My view is that we need to be listening to parents. They do have a say, they have a voice. However, I think it's important for us to allow the people we've hired, such as our curriculum director, to work with MDE and offer feedback and comply with graduation standards.
Okay, and last but not least, Stephanie.
I said in general, I believe we should abide by the Minnesota Department of Education, what they dictate. However, I would be open to listening to parents who have concerns and allowing them to voice or discuss these further with the board.
Okay, thanks everyone. So our final question before we take a quick break here, and John, we'll start with you on this one. Can you speak about tangible things that you have done in order to support our educators and our school staff?
Some tangible things that I've done is I've gone into the classrooms and done some reading in the classrooms. I've listened to friends that are teachers in the school district and other teachers in other school districts about their concerns. And, that's why I'm also running for school board, because there needs to be that change. But I've also, supported those teachers as well within their classrooms with regard to their Amazon wish lists and other things that they've kind of reached out to the community to try to get so they can better educate our students.
Okay, Troy.
This was a hard one for me because I'm not directly involved with education in Stewartville currently, other than through my kids. So, I send kids to school that don't cause problems. That helps. You send kids to school and make parents accountable and send them to school, and the teachers have easier times with their kids. So a lot of my interaction with it was through my wife was a volunteer for SEPTA for several years, and we ran the Santa shop for the schools for I don't know how many years, 4 or 5 years. And if you know what that is, I know it doesn't happen anymore, but it's a lot of work, and it's not just her volunteering, it's the entire family. And it provides money for the school's field trips and buses and other activities. And we spent several years doing that, storing it and maintaining that stuff. And
Okay. Thank you. Christy.
I'm going to first say that Santa Shop was amazing and a lot of work. So you should bring that back. And I also send 3 kids to school that I hope behave as well. So I actually used to work for the district and supported the teachers, mostly with technology in their classroom, but in many other ways as well. Since leaving the district, I helped to found the Adopt a Tiger program with a group of wonderful people and served on that for the past 2 years. And we provided the school staff with monthly gifts and treats and things like that, as well as connected them with community members that provided things for them as well. Once we could volunteer, starting last year, I volunteered in my daughter's first grade classroom on a weekly basis and also try to fill those Amazon wish lists as much as possible because as a previous teacher, I know how expensive it is to have a classroom. So anytime teachers are asking for anything, I try to do it because I know how much of a burden that is on them.
Okay, thank you. Brian.
I have just a few things that I've done to support our educators that are tangible. I've donated to Adopt a Tiger. I've donated some equipment to the music program. I've donated equipment to some sports programs, some stuff to the ag department. But I think that there are some intangible things that are just as important, like reading to kindergartners, volunteering for science fairs, volunteering to help in the classrooms at Bonner and Central, providing assistance to the music department when they have to go off site. I mean, I've even played the drums for some concerts and contests because there was student illnesses. But also being there, like to listen to a teacher or staff member when they feel like nobody's listening is where I feel like a big difference is being made. And it may not be long term, but it can be at least for a day.
Thank you. Chris.
Okay, I'm going to get myself in trouble here, but I have made cinnamon rolls for two of the schools on several occasions, and I couldn't do it during COVID. But now I'm going to be someone's going to want me to do them at the middle school and high school, I think. But that all jokes aside, I've worked with taking field trips both on the bus and being a volunteer on the field trips. But one of the most incredible ones was I helped at BCI this year with the carnival at the beginning of the year, and it was a kind of a for the kids, a time for them to reassociate with each other, and it was one of the funnest things I've done. I really enjoyed it, and Betty was there too, and it was really a lot of fun getting to know the kids, and it's kind of fun with having the kids see me not sitting in a driver's seat, but I really enjoy doing the field trips and volunteering at school, and I'll definitely continue to do that whether I'm elected or not. And I'll make cinnamon rolls whether I'm elected or not too.
All right, thank you. Betty.
So as I previously stated, I was on the school board for a couple years. Throughout the years, I volunteered in the classroom and with class field trips. I served a year on the board of what was previously known as Backpack. I've been a part of the Golf Booster Club for several years. I, as mentioned, helped at the carnival at the beginning of the year this year. Another proud recent example is I'm a troop leader for my daughter's Girl Scout troop, and my daughter's here tonight. And what we did for cookie sales this last year, any boxes that were donated, we worked with Tiger Charge and donated boxes of cookies to all the teachers and staff in the district.
Thank you. And Stephanie.
I wanted to lead off with what I feel is most important is just with our two kids attending the district, my husband and I have adopted the idea or the mindset that education is a partnership between, our child, the teacher, and us as a parent. I've supported the teacher again, just little things like the wish list, volunteered for field trips, and just have maintained an open line of communication with our children's teachers.
Okay. And Matt.
Some of the things that I've done tangibly to support the educators and school staff include advocating and securing funding for and donations for the REACH program and the Tiger Charge programs. I've volunteered numerous times on the Hot Reads Cold Nights Literacy Night out at Bonner, running the cash cab out there. I've been, like a lot of people said, anytime there was a request for books for the classroom from a book fair, things like that, my family's always done what we can to help support that. I'm on numerous booster clubs to support our children. I'm the president of the tennis booster club. And to kind of echo what everybody else said too, like, I think the biggest contribution I've done to make a difference is to sending well-rounded, well-behaved students to the classroom and being present in their education, attending the parent-teacher workshops, attending the pathways for success so that my students don't become an additional burden by not knowing where they need to go and what they need to do.
All right, thank you. Well, that brings us to the halfway point. We're going to take a 5-minute break. It is 7:28, so we're going to start again at 7:33. Again, if you have questions, please get those to Megan and Alicia over at the table. We're doing pretty good on time. But everyone go ahead, stretch your legs. We'll be back in 5 minutes. So if we're back on the feed, we're back here, we're all seated again. Thank you everyone for being conscious of everybody's time. So we'll get started with round 2 of questions here. And Troy, you get to start with question number 7 of the night. Good communication skills, the ability to disagree without engaging in unprofessional behavior, and the ability to be open to new viewpoints are incredibly important characteristics for people on the school board. How have you demonstrated that you can act in this capacity?
Well, as I said before, I've been in a professional profession as an accountant or finance for the last 20 plus years. I've had to have good communication skills. With that, talking to people all the way from, like I said, CFOs down to production workers. I've had to have hard conversations with people, but really the first thing I think that in good communication is good listening. And I'm not too much of a talker, so this is really uncomfortable for me. But I'm really good at listening and being quiet and listening to what they're actually saying, rather than trying to interject my own opinion in there. And I think that if you can listen to people, and even if they're yelling and screaming at you, you can still listen to them and then come up with a good solution to their angst or whatever is bothering them, or a good solution for the situation.
Okay. Christy.
Well, the skill set you listed are all things that I use daily in my professional and personal life. I provide trainings to hundreds of people each year and have no issues communicating with others. I also know that I'm a good listener and honestly respect others' opinions. I know that everyone's going to have the same opinion in mind as mine, and quite frankly, it'd be really boring if they did. So I also never hold someone's opposing opinion against them. We might disagree on a topic, but we can sit down and have lunch the next day. I've sat on numerous boards and think I do a pretty good job of disagreeing professionally while also listening to the reason that somebody else might be disagreeing with me. I really feel like the biggest thing for being on the school board is just having really good communication skills and listening to others. And that's something that I feel like I'm pretty good at.
All right. Ryan.
Well, I've been active in the public, volunteering for the Boy Scouts, chamber events, school board meetings, and I can honestly not recall a time where I did act unprofessionally. I really relish in listening to and acknowledging new and different and opposing viewpoints, because the more viewpoints and the more information that I can receive, the better the decision-making process becomes. And as far as like demonstrating my actions and how I prove that, I mean, there's like many hours of video on the district's webpage, on their YouTube page. And if you guys want to watch it, you can feel free. It's going to be kind of boring because I don't really get that fired up and I don't say any untoward things, but it's out there. And I do want to acknowledge that I'm fortunate as an incumbent that that's out there. And, so I just want to let that be said.
Okay, thank you.
So my occupations in the past have required a lot of team meetings where we were critical of each other, and we'd come up with creative ideas and come up with new strategies of working together and working as a team. And I can't remember a time where I've ever been unprofessional. I can recall times where I've been passionate, but within the context of a team where it's where you're working with people and you have authentic communication and honesty. And I think that's as important as just getting along. You have to be authentic with each other, and you have to be passionate without being out of line.
All right. Betty.
So many of the meetings I am a part of at work are around strategizing with many different points of views. And I believe that the free exchange of ideas is crucial, and that everyone on the board brings their own experiences to the table. And it's important to listen to other points of views, as many times my own point of view has been ultimately changed by listening to more information gathering. Once all the views have been heard and the board's made a decision, I also think it's very important that all the board members support the team decision.
I do this daily in my work at Mayo, working with patients. I have to be very professional and working with providers and nursing staff. I'm always respectful. I always maintain open communication. I'm always willing to listen to different viewpoints. I feel a lot of it is just my characteristics of who I am.
I think that numerous leadership roles I've held in the church and in the Lions Club organization have really helped me hone my skills in this regard. I've successfully navigated and brokered mutual understanding during heated conversations. I've solved complex problems and allowed each party to leave feeling like they were heard and understood, at least, even if they disagreed. The key to doing this is to actually be an empathetic listener and to put yourself in the shoes of the person that's so impassionate about what they're talking about, and not to be focused on how you're going to respond or how you're going to win that argument. I think that all of us are lifetime learners, and none of us have all the answers. And for us to not be open to hearing what others' perspectives are is just limiting our own potential. And I've also professionally been involved in the same type of thing, where I was actually one of the guys that they would bring into teams when they were having dysfunction to try to calm it. And it's a very nerve-wracking position to be in, to be good at that, because you're constantly in those heated positions. But it was something that I was one of those people that was brought in to help facilitate a solution. So,
Which you're doing great at.
John, go ahead.
All right, so agreeing to disagree is something constant that we all go through, and both echoing across this panel is that both personal and professionally. Professionally, I've been part of many different disagreements. Everybody has one opinion and everybody else has another opinion, and if we all had the same, we'd all be boring. But the thing is you have to be that empathetic listener. You have to understand where they're coming from, and you have to then get your point across so they understand where you're coming from. And I think being that person, I'm a great listener, but I also like to talk. I'm not shy to share my opinion, but I'm not shy to also take on somebody else's understanding of that position. So I think working and being able to have that middle ground is key.
And Troy. Okay, that's right.
That's his,
Moderator. 8 people, it takes a while, right? So up to question
It's
number
my
8. Christy, we'll start with you. What is your position on critical race theory?
Honestly, I don't believe that my personal position on critical race theory is why I'm here. I'm running for school board to represent the community and their concerns, and I'm not here for my own personal agenda or position on political and societal topics. I also believe any question on critical race theory really warrants more than a 1-minute answer. So since we are here to discuss school issues, I'll relate mine to school. I don't believe the concept of critical race theory is being taught in K-12 schools. What I wish this question was asking is more talking about equity and inclusion. We do need to be paying attention to ensure that all of our students are given the same opportunities. There shouldn't be any racial, gender, ethnic, socioeconomic disparities among our students in our schools. We need to have open doors for parents to feel comfortable to express their concerns if they feel there are any inequalities that are affecting their children and have a plan to overcome them. And we should be teaching our students how to be inclusive and how to respect others and their differences.
Thank you. Ryan, same question.
Well, from what I know about critical race theory is that it's something that is taught in some higher learning environments, such as law school. It is not something that is currently being taught in our schools. It's not something that's going to be being taught in our schools. It's not part of the Minnesota Department of Education's curriculum. And I think that, whether a person agrees or disagrees with the theory itself is rather irrelevant because it just doesn't have a place in a K through 12 environment.
Okay. Chris?
Well, I'm going to agree with both these guys, even though I'm going to say that I'm against it. But this is my reason why. It's just like any practice, policy, or theory that elevates or uses as a practice inclusion, exclusion, preference, or any person or group based on race, ethnicity, gender, ethnicity, disability, or whatever feature or belief that it identifies. CRT uses shame and a preference of groups to advance a position, and that's what I'm against. What I'm for is a promotion of mutual respect of all people and advancement through demonstrated skill performance and And then we need to stop the isms and stop the thinking that people are something because of a physical difference and celebrate them in the same context. All while promoting and advancing those who demonstrate hard work, skill sets, and determination.
Betty.
I'm just going to say this was a very difficult question to answer and the one I spent the most time on. And because I was directly asked what I thought, I'm going to address it. I worry that if our teachers are not allowed to have difficult discussions around history and racism, we're teaching our kids that some things just shouldn't be talked about. I don't think we can ignore what's happened in our past. I believe we need to teach about racism of the past without promoting the idea that racism is acceptable. And having these conversations can help our kids grow into thoughtful, knowledgeable, and well-rounded adults.
Thank you. Stephanie.
Like Betty, I spent quite a bit of time on this. I just want to say I'm not an expert on this topic. From my understanding, it's taught at the college level or a higher level. And I think that's the appropriate place for it to be taught.
Matt.
So to be honest, I was a little confused by this question too, because I wasn't sure if they were asking me what I personally felt about the theory, if they were asking if I thought it should be taught in our schools in place of curriculum or in addition to curriculum. So I'll tell you what I do know, or what I do believe. I believe that we have a duty to raise our children and to educate our children to be critical thinkers capable of making informed decisions for themselves. I believe that politics and political rhetoric have no place in our school and education system. And unfortunately, critical race theory is one of those theories that has become highly politicized over the years, even if the intent wasn't for that to be so. Personally, I do believe that unfortunately, we see racism and exclusion far too often in our world around us. And if we all strive to just be a little bit more self-aware and to live in a more inclusive and diverse manner, that maybe we can actually overcome those as a society moving forward.
John.
So I totally agree. Critical race theory is not something for K through 12. It's more for higher learning, more for higher level thinkers than a kindergartner. But it's something that's here, unfortunately, because we all have to deal with the isms of our society and the segregation that we have. Unfortunately, it does bleed over into our K through 12. I think it is essential that we all be united, that we don't let this theory be destructive to our educational process and to our and just teaching our kids. Unfortunately, it's because this stuff has come about that this question has come around. But my position is that we are one nation, we are one city, we are one school board. And I don't agree that people should be segregated. Everybody should be equal.
All right, and Troy.
So going last, to echo a lot of what everybody else said. And yeah, critical race theory is really just a social ideology that really probably does not belong in K through 12 schools and is really more of something that should be at that college level. We should really work on the theory of just being inclusive of our children, no matter what their color is, providing them the same opportunities. I mean, I think that's probably what we should strive for, is the opportunity, right? That's what everybody's looking for, is equality, or the opportunity to be able to succeed in the school district.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Ryan, we'll go back to you to start off our next question here. What is your position regarding censoring books in the library?
Well, book censoring and book banning is a direct violation of our First Amendment right. And so deciding which books are appropriate for certain age groups is subjective, because each family is quite a bit different from another. So I feel it's best that they have the choice in determining which books suit their children best. Unless a book, is wildly and universally accepted as inappropriate, if it's not that, it should have a place in the library where each family can decide whether or not their child should or should not read it.
Okay. Chris.
So it seemed to me like it was asking a yes or no question, or more of a yes or no question. So I said yes, and here's why. Our kids can't go out to pure pleasure and buy whatever they want. So I mean, there's legal ramifications there. So we got to be careful. We work within those legal bounds. And again, the parents again should have some say in what's on the shelf. But on the other hand, we also do need to expose the kids to specific things. But again, it needs to be in the context of education and not indoctrination. And again, I think we got to keep it within the legal bounds too. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Betty?
So I would say in general, I don't believe in censoring books, and I believe that kids should be able to attain books and subject matters they're interested in. In reality, if students can't find what they want in the library, they're going to find it on the internet. And I guess I would rely on the professionalism of the library staff that we have to determine if a book needs to be removed.
Okay. Stephanie?
My response is I'm not in favor of censoring books. However, I realize that there are books that may have subject matters that may need to have further discussions to go along with that.
Thank you. Matt?
Kind of similar to the last question, I think it's our duty to educate our students to be contributing members of society and to be able to have the skills to be independent thinkers and how to find and educate themselves when they run into situations they don't know about. And one of those avenues is through reading and through books and through research. So as a general rule, I'm absolutely against the idea of censoring books in the library. But like some have already said, I think there are fringe things on the outside of those that probably fall into the situation where it might be reasonable to do so. So would I recommend the removal of J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye or Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five? No. But would I be an advocate for having Playboy magazine on the shelves because of the articles? Probably also a no.
John?
So my position is I don't think that books should be censored. I think it should be up to the parents to, if they want to censor a book like Catcher in the Rye, that should be up to their decision. I think those books serve a purpose, though. I think those books are a picture in time when they were written, and they cover a topic at that point in time that's sometimes often lost through censoring. So no, I don't agree.
Troy?
So censoring the books in the library and talking about, I assume we're talking about a school library or such. Yeah, I think, you shouldn't have things in your school or anything that, it's not pornographic or sexually explicit beyond, social norms. Everybody knows most people know what's decent and what's not decent. I'd say let the professionals, the librarians, and that decide what's professional and what's probably age appropriate to expose kids to, and what's maybe not age appropriate because they can't understand it. But in general, you probably don't need to censor a lot of books. But like I said, just those things that are beyond our standards or our norms in the community.
Christy?
So at the start of my career in education, I actually was a middle school reading teacher, and I absolutely love books and really prided myself in finding books for middle school students that they love to read, which is a really hard task. But that being said, I always read the books first and made sure that they were age appropriate for my students. If I found one that I thought was a little controversial, I would always reach out to the parents and let them know what they would be reading about and get their approval first. So I do believe that all books used in schools should be read and reviewed by professionals for things like accuracy, controversial topic, age appropriateness, things like that, inaccurate stereotypes. They should be read and reviewed for that. But then educators really just need to be open and communicate with the families about what is in the content of the books. Parents have every right to choose if they want their child to read that book, but I don't really believe that they should have the right to ban the books for all students.
Right. Thank you. So our last prepared question here tonight, and Chris, we'll start with you on this one. What are the top 3 changes or improvements that you would like to see in our school system?
The first one for me would be to help the staff feel more supported, figure out why they don't feel supported. And I've heard this so many times that it's obviously an issue. And I think also rewarding the hard work and figuring out maybe unique benefits, something that's going to draw them here besides the money. So that's my first issue. The second issue is obviously the facilities. I think there's no doubt we've got serious facility issues, but I think there's a better way to do it than what we voted on. And I think there's even if it costs a little bit more money, I think the voters are going to be more behind it. And then my third thing would be to address the sports and the extracurricular facilities. There are issues that we need to address there, but we need to figure out, maybe we can figure out a different way to fund it, and maybe we can figure out different ways to support it. And that's where the creative part of the board comes in.
Okay. Betty.
So my top 3 changes or improvements are creating a physically safe environment for all students with classes and education opportunities where they can develop critical thinking skills that are needed in the workforce today. I also think we need to review utilization of all the space within the district before talking about building new facilities, and then being a good steward of our taxpayer dollars.
Okay. Stephanie.
My top one is safety and security of our schools. The second one is expanded available programs being offered. And I'm not sure, my kids aren't at the high school level yet, but just like, do we have engineering or the vocational opportunities at that level? I'm not sure. I've always looked for a robotics team. Do we have one? Do we have a robotics club? I have like forward thinking. I would love for this district to have a teacher that would support that, or just maybe new ideas of somehow incorporating nature, or just forward thinking on some things. My third would be just a commitment to improving education with our technology.
Okay, thank you. Matt.
So the first improvement or changes that I would like to see out of the gate is to find a way to complete the secure entrances to all of our schools. That's something that we were looking forward to do with some of the money coming out of the referendums that I don't know what the status is of now. And this is something I think we have to solve immediately. We can't allow this to become a potential what if situation. If only we had done this. Second, I think I'd like to see us find short and long-term solutions and a pathway forward to, at a minimum, get our early childhood learners out of Central and into a better suited learning environment. And third is coming from just some feedback I've received from people in the community, as I'd like to see some discussions on what it would take to increase access to Tiger Time for our families that are enrolled here in Stewartville. I know every year that seems to be a topic. People that were in don't get back in, or it fills up in 30 seconds or whatever. And I would love to see a way for us to find out what it would take to offer that to more families.
Okay. John.
So kind of echoing back earlier, I agree. We need to first and foremost keep our safety and security at the forefront. I think it's very important, especially given our current trend. I think too, next is we need to get more input from our parents and our voters, and work with our colleagues across at City Hall to figure out how we can work together to build that infrastructure so we can improve our facilities and other buildings and maybe look at other means to do so. I think too, the last is that we need to support our educators. I think that is also that should have been maybe number one, is that those are the people that we turn to teach our kids, to instruct them and help them get to the next level. So I think we need to give them more opportunity for growth within the district and growth within their classrooms.
All right. Troy.
So I had a safe and secure environment for our students. I think that's really important because they don't learn if they don't feel safe and secure. And I know I've heard other things about kids not feeling safe at school or having trouble in classrooms because students are disruptive and learning doesn't occur when that happens. I would say utilization of our funds. Finding more efficient ways to use our funding that we do have, and maybe other avenues through grants and donations and stuff like that to help fund our schooling before we go to the taxpayers. And then when we do have a clear and concise way to communicate what we're going to use the funds for and make sure it's what the community wants. And lastly, I'd like to see maybe some changes. I know that, again, looking back from kids who have graduated from the school, those vocational opportunities, those non-academic opportunities for our kids, because they really get lost. And when they're not academic, they get hopeless, and then they become problems.
All right. Christy.
So first, kind of echoing what I said before, is really the mental health support in our schools, because our needs have tremendously increased, and it's leading to a lot of the other issues that these people have addressed as well. So behavior issues, absenteeism, and students not succeeding. So I'd like to see that. Another improvement, which if you were here earlier tonight, is really building a stronger relationship between the community and our schools. So there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect, which was also stated earlier tonight. So really building that connection, because when we build that, it allows so many more opportunities for our students. And then finally, kind of what everyone else said too, is just really offering more educational opportunities for our students. And part of that is that we need some facilities in order to offer some of these educational opportunities. We need more classes that students can get more certificates and things that they can apply to future careers. I feel like we have a lot of positive things happening in the Stewartville schools, but there's a few things that if we could focus on those things, then we could be recognized as one of the top schools in the area.
All right, Ryan.
Well, yeah, the security improvements. I mean, there's some things that they're doing well. There's some things that really need improvements. So, I mean, but the security can always be improved, and I feel like we need to continue to work on that. We need more mental health services. We need to work on that. In the 4 years that I've been on, I think every year we keep adding a little bit to that, and it always seems like we're still behind. So I need to continue to add more mental health services for all the kids that are, well, they're still struggling. They're struggling before the pandemic and even after, more now. We need more support for our teachers. This would fall under like the additional staffing stuff that I had mentioned a couple times earlier. For like the Tiger Time program is really short staffed, and it's a huge concern. It's a big problem for our community. And then just to wrap everything up, I really want to see some better community engagement with the school board. I think that we can always improve how we interact and how frequently we interact with our community, and the proper representation is something that always can be improved upon.
All right. Thank you all. So we have our first question from the crowd here, and Betty, you get to go first on this one. So no prep. Sorry, we got to think on our feet if we're on school board, right? So in Olmsted County, there are 2 schools that do not have a resource officer in their school. If you get elected, will you push to get a resource officer in our school here in Stewartville?
It's a hard question to answer because I don't have all the information to know what is going on in our schools as far as violence. I don't know.
Okay. Stephanie, your thoughts on Stewartville having a resource officer?
What 2 schools don't? You said 2 schools don't?
That's on the note here, so.
You
Sir?
want to elaborate on that?
Sure.
I did talk to the sheriff department, and there's 2 schools in Olmsted County that do not have resource officers in the schools, and how critical they are for the schools. We can talk more about that, love to. Lewards is one, and Stewartville is the other one. So there is no resource officer in those schools taking care of problems. Jimmy Dunn can probably state too that a lot of times the deputy is spending more time at school than doing their street stuff. So.
Can I answer?
Yep.
With a little bit more context?
Let's do that.
With that additional data, yes, I would think it would be important. My question would be, how do we pay for that, and what are we taking away from to pay for that?
Can I elaborate on that?
Sure.
So the school would be responsible about $104,000 for a resource officer. $50,000 of that would have to come from the school. $25,000 of that would come from the city of Stewartville if they would agree to do that. Because when that officer is not at that school in the summertime, he becomes an officer in the community. The other is through state and federal funding.
my response to that would be we'd have to look at where we would take that money from, because it obviously has to come from somewhere.
Okay, so yeah, Stephanie, your thoughts?
Maybe this would be a partnership with the city. I'm I guess I'm surprised. I guess if that is true, that we don't have one in Lourdes. I would say at this time, I would have to defer and get community input.
Okay,
Okay.
Matt.
So my experience professionally as an analyst for 17 years, I like to have all that information in front of me and use data to help drive that. And some of those data points would be what other schools are doing, what other cities are doing, and to make an informed decision of that if it's necessary for Stewartville. Just because we're one of the only ones that doesn't necessarily automatically equate to we need one. Now, it very well could, but if we're not getting that data, we're not looking at that data, we're not processing that, and not using that to help drive us instead of reacting emotionally to everything, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice to just jump and assume that we need that. But at the same time, if that's what the community wants and the direction we think we need when we have those discussions with the community and our professionals, I absolutely would be in favor of it if that's what makes sense for us.
Okay, John?
So it's interesting because it does kind of tie back to the safety and security that we've all kind of echoed across this line. Lourdes is interesting because Lourdes is a private school. I went to a private school, so I understand that is separate from the school board of Rochester. It's on its own. But so they could pay for it themselves if they wanted to. Us having to pay for it would definitely need to be a collaboration between the school board, the city, and who absorbs that cost. We're still asking the taxpayers to absorb that cost. So echoing is that we need to look and make sure that makes fiscal sense for that idea. Am I for it? I would agree to it, but I would want to look at it and make sure that officer is in, if he's going to be in that, or she is going to be in that area or in that school, that she's doing what she needs, or he or she needs doing what they need to do.
Okay, Troy.
Yeah, for a resource officer, I'd say that we'd probably need, again, I'm a financial analyst, so data drives decisions a lot of times. So data would be nice to have to see what kind of issues does Stewartville have and do we need it? Secondly, where does the funding come from? That's great if we can partner with the state and the city to provide that, to have a timeshare, so to speak, with an officer. I do know that I have a brother-in-law that was a DARE officer and a resource officer in where we're from in Wyoming, and it's a great way for the kids to get to know an officer. All the kids loved him, right? And be comfortable with police presence, and also provide some security for the kids to feel safer at school, regardless if it's an external threat or other kids in the school, and bullying and other things like that they may have problems with. It's just an authoritative presence in the school that may help with some of those safety issues.
Okay, Christy.
First of all, I appreciate the question. I do agree with everybody else too. I can't sit up here and say for sure this is what we're going to do until we were to really analyze how it would be paid for and everything. But I do kind of, if that was something that the community was really interested in, I think there's ways that we could look at that and determine how we could get that done. The school district I currently work for does have school resource officer, and I too have seen huge benefits to having a school resource officer in the school. The way that the kids are connected to the school resource officer in the district I work in really does get that presence in there, but then also really connects them to a police officer, which I think is great. It also gives teachers sense of mind, which is really important too. I think a lot of teachers are leaving education because they are scared and feel uncomfortable. So it gives them that presence of mind too, that there's somebody else here to back me up if I need it. So I do think it's an important topic and something we should consider, but I can't go forward saying for sure we would do that until we were to look at budgets.
All right, Ryan.
Yeah, I would support having a resource officer if the community wants it. 3 years ago, when we did our operating levy, when we went out for our operating levy, there was a survey that went out, And that was at the bottom of the list for the survey of the community of what was needed. Now, that was 3 years ago. Things have changed. That could be totally different. So if the community wants it, yes. Where does the money come from? It comes from our general fund, and that is used to fund teacher salaries for the most part, the majority of it. So to fund an officer, you're looking at maybe 1 or 2 teachers worth of money. And it's not like the operating levy that we were, or the not operating levy, the referendum that we were just went out for, that money can't be used for that. So we would have to, I mean, I don't know how we could do it without going out for another operating levy, but I would support it if the community wanted it. Yes.
All right. And Chris?
I'd support it too, depending on the data. It'd be interesting to see how much time the officers are spending at their schools now, to know that, and then to move forward from there. On the other thing that I would say is after working in juvenile corrections for 9 years, it is a very proactive measure to have that relationship built and to have them on site. And I'm all for the safety and security of the schools and putting in money into technology, but the reality is the technology is only as good as the people that use it. And we're so short-staffed at most of our schools, from what everybody says, that we need to also deal with that. So the simple answer is, yes, I would support it if the community supports it, but more importantly, what the data would tell us.
All right. Thank you all, and thank you, sir, for your question submission. Megan, Alicia, do we have any other questions submitted? All right, well, we still have a little bit of time yet, so why don't we go ahead and Stephanie, we'll start with you. A closing statement of what you would like people to know about you before they cast their ballot on November 8th.
I grew up here. I love Stewartville. I love the community. I have characteristics of, great listening. I'm empathetic. I'm open-minded. I feel like I'm forward-thinking. With my degree in education, I obviously feel a pull towards children and education. I just hope for your vote.
All right, thank you. Matt?
First, I'd just like to start by saying what an awesome community we must have that 8 people want to fight for 4 positions. That says a lot about our community and the desire and the love for our school district. With that being said, my wife and I moved here 19 years ago, largely in part because of the reputation of the Stewartville School District. We wanted to be closer to Rochester where we were employed. And we've been here for almost 20 years now, and we've seen a lot of awesome things. I believe that our school system is the heartbeat of our community, and our heartbeat is really strong here in this community. You go out on a Friday night to that football field, or you go watch the volleyball team or any of the other sports teams, the whole community is rallying around that, and I just want to be a part of making that even better. And if I am lucky enough to get your vote, I guarantee I will work tooth and nail to do everything I can to continue to make Stewartville an awesome school district and a great place to live.
All right, John.
So, moving here 11 years ago, my wife and I decided that this would be a great fit for us. We wanted a small class sizes. We wanted a great education for our children, and we get that every single day. Like what was just said, 8 people are vying for 4 seats. It's amazing. It's shocking. It says something about this community that they value their education and they want what's best for our kids. And I think, when you guys go and vote in November, that voice will be heard about who you guys choose to be your voice on the school board. And I hope that it's me, but if not, there's 7 other great candidates. So vote.
Thank you. Troy?
And I went blank. So yeah, I have invested in the school district. I had 4 kids here. I've had 2 that have graduated. I have a unique perspective, I think, from a lot of people that have kids out and in the district, and I'm vested, and I hoping to learn a lot from the school and the school district and the other school board members, and hopefully make some good changes for our school.
Christy?
First of all, I want to kind of echo what John said too. I feel like sitting up here, I'm like, everybody sounds like a great candidate. So I also have no clue who I'm going to vote for. So don't envy all of you guys who have to decide as well. So great candidates up here, but I feel like I'm a good candidate because I really live and breathe education. This is what I do all day, every day. I feel like I have a lot of knowledge to bring to the board of things that are happening in other districts, but I also have been invested in the Stewartville district and community all my life. I really feel drawn to give back to the community by being on the school board. Not only do I have kids in the community, but I'm very connected to a lot of other people in the community. I would love to sit down and have coffee and listen to community concerns and just really bring those to the school board meetings. Again, I'm a good listener and just really want to be here to represent the community, not my own personal agenda of ideas, but really to represent the community and bring in some experiences that I've had professionally. So just get out and vote. I'm not going to say vote for me, but get out and vote for any of us because everybody sounds great up here. So,
All right. Ryan?
Well, Stewartville's been very good to me. It's been good to me in my adult life. It was great to me when I was going to school here. And I said it 4 years ago too. I'm trying to return the favor. I'm trying to put everything that I got, everything that I am into this district because I love it. I really do. I will continue to work tirelessly hard. Well, I'll do as tirelessly as I can. There's not that many hours involved in the job, but I'll do what I can. And I'm also want to echo what people are saying. 8 people up here. I mean, if I don't get in, if somebody else doesn't get in, I think we're in good shape. It looks like, it's impressive hearing what everybody has to say. So it's a good feeling to know that, when you're on the board and you're doing everything you can, and you obviously feel like, oh no, what happens if I don't get back in? But I want to be back in, obviously, but I'm not terribly worried from listening to what everybody has to say. It's a good feeling.
All right. Chris?
Yeah, I would agree with everybody here. I mean, I think there's a lot of talent on the board currently too. I think what I bring is just a little bit different perspective, but I don't think it's radically different. And I think that says a lot of good things too. My biggest passion though is the kids. I mean, driving bus has given me, which honestly my son kind of got me into, and I just always said I never wanted to drive a bus, but I'm telling you, it's one of the funnest jobs. And part of that is because we have a lot of great kids. I mean, and a lot of great staff. I mean, I've hauled a lot of them, and I think I do like 8 or 9 different big bus routes plus all the early childhood, and it's fun to do it. The kids are really a lot of fun, and it just gives me hope for what our future is. And I listen to what other districts are saying, what other bus drivers I've talked to at events say, and I'm really impressed with Stewartville. And that's part of the reason we moved here. So, yeah.
All right. And last but not least, Betty?
I'd like to echo two wonderful candidates that you have to choose from. They will all represent Stewartville well. I am raising my family here. I love this community. I want to give back. I'm passionate about education, my own education. I've been a lifelong learner, and I will be open to new ideas, viewpoints. I'm interested in hearing from our taxpayers, our stakeholders. And what I really want you to know is that when I'm placing my vote in the boardroom, there's going to be 3 things that I think of. Is it in the best interest of our stakeholders? Is it fiscally responsible? And is it the best plan based on the available data? Data-driven decisions.
All right. Well, thank you all. And it's been a lot of fun for all of us to be here tonight and to hear from you. And I would echo that sentiment that it's great that we have 8 people running for 4 open seats. So that puts a wrap on our open forum for 2022. Couple quick thank yous. Chris Roberts doing the audio and visual, so people at home, hi, thanks to him. He loves attention also, so that's great. So does Gwen. Gwen does a lot of stuff behind the scenes. She's our chamber administrator. She makes everything go. So Gwen, thank you as always for all that you do. then Alicia, Megan, Jared, takes a village of board people to make this work. So thank you guys. And then I would say to these 8 candidates, you all mentioned it, the fact that we do have 8 people willing to dedicate 4 years of their life for our children and their future, and putting in that extra time as volunteers and putting yourself out here tonight. Thank you for your candor, your demeanor, and your dedication. So let's all give them a round of applause. So that's it. Thanks, everyone. Oh. Thank you. Thank your wife.